I deeply admire the mechanics of Pragmata. Not only is the design of the combat and level structure engaging in isolation, the developers found interesting ways to extend the design in service of the overall thematics. The tree of design branches outward in different directions and curiously weaves those branches alongside one another in such a natural fashion that results in a satisfying completion as I step back and see the tree in their entirety. This video is only intended for those who have rolled credits on Pragmata. If you have not, there will be gameplay and narrative spoilers ahead, and I don't recommend that you watch the video. Play the game and then come back here. We're gonna jump right into the combat first. The cool thing about the combat in this game is that your guns are bad. So by default, you only really do chip damage until you, and by you, I mean Diana, hacks an enemy, thus resulting in them being vulnerable for a little bit. A fluid system, when you aim at an enemy and a hacking grid appears, you move through to the blue square to complete the hack. The face buttons being used in this way is incredibly satisfying. The combat at its core is a multitasking dance between moving out of the way of attacks, finding any opportunity to hack, and trying to get in as much damage as possible when that hack is complete. Having my eyes bounce back and forth from the grid to my enemies while having my fingers bouncing around the face buttons feels so good. Grid patterns are randomized, but there are layouts that show up again, and some patterns even correlate with specific enemies. The blue nodes when passed through increase damage dealt and the time that the enemy is vulnerable. There are tiles that block me as well, and as I move around the grid, I leave a trail that I cannot pass through. The only way to undo the trail is to reverse the path that I went. Having solid tiles combined with the fact that I leave a trail would sometimes put me in a tough spot, and I've defo been hit more than once trying to undo a path I've created. When I'm hacking, I am not locked into it. I'm free at any time to let go of the left trigger and stop aiming, which is always a good choice to make, especially considering that movement is faster when not aiming. When hacking an enemy, the grid for that enemy has permanence, which means that even if I go hack another enemy, wherever I left the first grid remains the same. So if I put myself in a bad spot, I'll have to undo that to hack them at some point. There is another way technically, and that is with the nodes. Nodes are consumables you can pick up while playing that show up on a hacking grid. These nodes, if passed through and then completing a hack, have all sorts of different effects. These effects range from confusing an enemy to attack other enemies, freezing them in place, and many more. Some nodes can be strung together, resulting in the effect stacking. These nodes being consumables means that I try to be cognizant of which enemies to use them on. Like, using the freeze node is really good to stop a massive enemy while dealing with smaller ones. The nodes come in stacks of 3, so when they run out, I gotta find more, but the game is plentiful with ammo and item drops. The combat on its own is incredibly just scratching to my brain, but I love all the ways they build upon this core. I did enable gyro aiming not too long into playing, as using an analog stick with gyro is the smoothest and most accurate way to aim on a controller, and it feels like butter. I was already used to this from playing Splatoon, so it took no adjusting for me to be simultaneously keeping my aim where I wanted while hacking, further adding to the multitasking layered cake that this combat is. The very limited ammo count every weapon has, combined with the constant weapon drops, combined with the nodes being consumables, makes for fun on-the-fly plan making with whatever I had. Leading me to stretching my brain to think of cool ways to take down enemies with weapons I might not have used all that much otherwise. And that led to me appreciating all of their purposes and strengths. Weapons and pickups seem to spawn on the outer edges of a room or area, so dashing and running to go grab a weapon also allows for a nice moment to reassess how I wanted to go about my current situation as I turn around to see all my foes at once. Having regenerating ammo for your primary was also a nice touch, ensuring I am never fully out of ammo, but also encouraging me to switch to other weapons if I have them instead of using my primary, so much in the attempt to save my other weapons for a quote-unquote better time. This was a really nice solve that fits well for the loss aversion problem. A lot of people tend to save so many weapons and items, which can often lead to you only using them a few times and not getting to use all the cool stuff in a bunch of cool contexts. It's not a problem I have. The devs give me cool stuff, I'm gonna go be cool and flashy. Although I do love seeing this elegant solution to nudge players in that direction. The repurposing of things you learned elsewhere for something new and or within different contexts is something I heavily appreciated. The simple rotating hack you learn to open doors is all that it's used for a while, until you meet the flying robots that shoot missiles, and being able to reroute those back to the enemy with muscle memory you already have feels so good. And I like that you get a short close-up of a new enemy type before the game just rezooms like normal and just lets you figure it out. It was such a nice feeling when that simple grid popped up, because my brain was like, I know this, and then I just did it from muscle memory, but using it in a different context, especially to basically just parry the missile back towards them, I thought was just so cool. Having it jump from something that you just used to unlock doors to a whole new combat mechanic, I thought was just a really cool jump to have. PRAGMATA has a really fun broader controller use on display, with every button having a frequent use or even multiple uses in combat. It's really refreshing to have my fingers bouncing around all over the controller. Over the course of the game, this does get built upon, and by late game, when the evil goo is infecting enemies, it just adds to the timing and variety of button presses, opening more room for satisfying button combinations. The charging and letting go of the pulse that clears the goo, pressing and holding the trigger to aim, and then bouncing on the face buttons to hack, and then letting go and pressing the right bumper to dodge. It just, there's so many wonderful button combinations in this game that just happen from you playing and reacting and not really thinking of combinations. The destructions of the floorboards is also a really lovely touch to add to both mine and the enemy's impact. It would also make me smirk when my eyes would dart away from my hacking because of it. It almost feels like a cheeky little distraction from the developers. There are plenty of little nods, like placing the invisible enemies in front of a chest, here with the section where I got to choose my path, only to get baited to one side because it had the pickup that I wanted, and then I just get locked off. So many cute design moments like this that make me go, alright, I see how it is. As a joke, it gets pulled on me through the lovely conversation between player and developer that is game design. I don't have too much to say for the bosses in this game, other than that I really enjoyed them. The traditional stepping stone design on display I think is done really well. Having new environmental quirks like the lasers you need to jump over in combat, or the weather conditions introduced to help teach methods of thinking that would later prove useful for the next boss, I mean, it's done well. The cutscene with this specific boss is also really cool too. The camera work in this cutscene had me holding my breath for real. As well as this dingus doing this freeze thing throughout the fight, only to do it at the end and then shut down, that's a nice touch. When dying in this game, the implication is that Diana takes Hugh back to the safe room instead of him actually dying, which allows for them to talk about what could be done better or what to watch out for. I really like that extra step to diegetically give the players some advice without the usual text other games display on the loading screen, as this serves as another way to have some talking between Diana and Hugh.
When the garden keeper drops down on us, it almost makes me forget how to hack. It got dark right when it scurried up the walls, and I couldn't keep track of it.
All right. Next time that happens, we find it ASAP.
Atmosphere. I love the use of the color blue as a motif in this game. Always there accompanying your surroundings, a subtle reminder of the coldness of both the moon and the sterile, personality-void technology, as well as a reminder of the ocean, a reminder of Hugh's promise. Here we see traces of multicolored beams of light briefly zipping by, while the harsh white gives way to a soft, emanating blue. In the menus, blue is most prominent. In the VR missions, blue wraps around the formations that you are mantling and jumping on. The usage of blue also flows like water in a lot of instances. The ring on the map, the depths in the late game area feel very ocean-like. When arriving in the terrarium, the darker blue drawing my eyes toward the entrance as a point of interest. The usage of foliage really cultivates different feelings. Here with the branches and leaves casting shadows back, darkening the familiarly white room. There are so many unique little choices that help add variety to the feeling of many of the spaces, and I really appreciate that. The game could have been so much more sterile and just white rooms, moon base, but they clearly put a lot of thought into how to build these environments. Auditorily, it's also really refreshing for a game that presents as this does to not have music playing all the time. Aside from the occasional ambient track, the game really lets you sit with the whirs of technology or just straight up silence. As someone who turns off mini-maps, markers, and HUD elements I don't want the majority of the time when playing a game, Pragmata made me so happy seeing that the game straight up doesn't have any HUD a lot of the time. I want to observe and pore over the worlds I hop into, so having elements like the boost meter come up only when I need to see the gauge really lets my eyes wander without bumping into any UI. Not that UI is something that should be hidden. UI can for sure have a place, especially more flashy and stylistic ones. I just really like the effort taken in this game to diegetically speak with me. I love when things are contextualized within the space, and when most of, if not all the information I need is of the world, and everyone who inhabits the world also knows it is there as well. I played with my weapon dial in compact, and I played with tutorial messages, objective display, and damage display all turned off. Diana having a glow and usually informing me her overdrive is ready is a great diegetic way to let me know instead of my eyes darting to the bottom left of the screen to see. Diana also having reactive quips was nice, like here when I turned two robots on each other. The moon base was built utilizing a lot of verticality, getting to look up, down, and out over either where I had just come from or observing a new area creates a seamless sense of space that helped me spatially orient myself without me having to think super hard about the layout. Exploring always felt distinct both visually and mechanically. The game takes great effort to have the player consider the world around them vertically, through spectacle, through forcing you with hacking on the ceiling in the early game. The game really gets you into the habit of considering the world vertically early on. Even smaller and more static places always had some sort of interesting design to admire, so much so I'd often be surprised and linger in them, even if mechanically there was only a single item to grab. And instead of this just being a hallway that serves for me to grab this item, over the railing there's this whole section that I just admired for a few moments before I left, because having this bespoke section where there's nothing really going on over here mechanically is just really surprising. I love the consideration of routes that take you back to other routes or a wider area. Collectibles being placed in sight but not instantly accessible is always fun, always encouraging me to be observant. Is the solution to getting them in this area? Will I have to loop around from another path? It's a nice way to have the player pore over their surroundings and really look at what is around them. I love the VR missions in this game. When I like the mechanics of a game, having a challenge mode of sorts where the mechanics of the game can be pushed hyper-specifically without the need to figure out how it can fit within a broader context is gold to me. These are just extensively mechanical playgrounds, and because VR missions are optional, they afford the developers the comfort to set up more weird and difficult situations.
I hope we're not too late to stop Aiden.
Don't worry. Cleaning up messes is what I do best. A little trouble's all part of the job.
Rejecting the human nature of just being and behaving in a way because it feels good to is very core to this narrative. how those things are at odds with efficiency, and how we find ways to dance around it societally. It's fantastically beautiful. I'd criticize an email in this game, waxing about efficiency above all, when I'd stubbornly reroute my hacking when I thought it could be cleaner. Countless times I'd finish a fight and think, I could have done that better. I used a confusion or a multi-hack when I quote-unquote didn't need to. But I won the encounter, didn't I? Playing in the favor of being flashy and loose led me to making what before would have been perceived as mistakes. I chained a multi-hack and confusion only to have my jaw drop when the enemies all started fighting each other. I didn't know that could happen, and I wouldn't have if I didn't make a mistake, if I didn't play loosely. Luckily, I caught myself early on going down the path of beating myself up because I wasn't playing as efficiently as I thought I could. And then I decided within the first hour and a half that I just would play very loosely and use my consumables and just go bombastic with everything. Dr. Higgins wished that he would have been with his wife and daughter. And yes, he was what he perceived as close to a cure, if only it wasn't for a person at Delphi acting in the pursuit of monetary gain. But that is if, and well, this is. The screens on the walls show me memories of things that just were. Trees, clouds, toys, swing sets. REMs serve as a memory for the future when those things are right back on Earth. For those ahead who didn't get to be with what was, and yet these people are sacrificing being with and appreciating those things that are now. Just as certain people would see those REMs far off in the future and think about how back then must have been a simpler time. All of the cognitive barriers and walkways we create all fall to the side in the moments of tragedy, but they can be to the side perpetually if we choose so. To accept one thing is to inherently turn away another. Dr. Higgins accepted that he had to be away from his wife and daughter to do the experiments and work to develop a cure. Dr. Higgins could have accepted what was, that his wife and that Daisy were sick, and he could have been there by their sides until they weren't. Either they got better, or until they weren't around. I was able to internalize the inevitability of loss in the gameplay, to accept that, and to confidently move forward utilizing all and whatever I had without fear of items, weapons, resources being gone. They were there for me to work with. They were there to be appreciated, and then they would be gone, and they would come back again, and they would be gone. Internalizing this very early on, I had no idea it would wrap around and come back through the overall narrative of the game. It was quite literally everywhere in the design of the game. And it's almost like the developers of the game were standing over me, comforting me, being like, it's okay to use this. It's okay. A phantom hand encouraging me, telling me that it's okay to use what is around me. The game always supplying things for me to use. I got really comfortable with letting go because I knew that different things would come. To let go of one thing is to inherently open up space for another. Dr. Higgins was also a parental figure to 8. Dr. Higgins' disdain fell onto 8. 8 had to watch someone who was falling apart, constantly wishing for a reality that was different, wishing for situations to be different, things that weren't.
I can't believe I missed my daughter's birthday for this.
You got kids?
Sounds rough. Nah, I wouldn't trade it for a thing.
I can't believe I missed my daughter's birthday for this. I wouldn't trade it for the world. He wouldn't trade it for the world, but he would trade it for money. Now, I don't know this person's circumstances. He could be in debt. He could have a bunch of bills. He could be trying to get a bigger house or nicer car, or just, trying to get by. Or his daughter could be very ill, and he could just be trying to get the money to pay for treatment. A cure, you could say. The person in the beginning is just like Dr. Higgins, who we learn and get to see at the very end. Two people who made choices to be away instead of with. I think this game both wants us to acknowledge our loss of version and the desire for more, and I think this game wants us to also make a choice and to keep heading forward without thinking and getting hung up on other choices, the what ifs, the what could haves. Pragmata to me is about acceptance and about just being there, wherever there is. To fall in love with the idea of what could be or what was becomes dangerous when we become removed from all that is around us and all that there is to love and appreciate. And it's not like Dr. Higgins or the person in the beginning made a wrong choice. They just made a choice. And I think the important part is to just not wish you made a different choice. As Barrett from Final Fantasy VII would say,
There's no room in this for regrets or what ifs or any of that. All we can do is keep moving forward, keep following this path we chose. Wherever, so we can say we did all we could.
and I really love that, and that's something that I'm still learning to internalize myself. To make a choice and give it your all, to be there with your all, is a practice. It's a practice because that's what we do. We practice showing up again and again for ourselves, and the more we practice, the more we get better at doing it. It just becomes second nature. The better we can be at not wishing for aspects of the past or the future, to do all we can do right now and to not be crushed under what ifs. Pragmata, you're a really cool game. I wasn't vibing with this game all so much thematically until I was writing, and I was so obsessed with the mechanics of this game, and I wanted to just write out how I felt. I ended up having a moment where it clicked. After I rolled credits on the game and was writing about the mechanics, it thematically clicked with me what the game had been reinforcing and telling me the whole time. It was right there. And to the developers of Pragmata, I love how mechanically you sneakily had me engaging with your overall themes long before I realized.
Come peruse our newly expanded inventory.
So this is where we part ways. Yeah. You may forget who I am, but I will always remember you. Hey, we'll meet again. Someday.